The massive crystalline station floated in the darkness of space, orbiting a distant world called Kepler 442b. Inside its transparent walls, beings from 47 different star systems had gathered for an event that happened only once every 100 years. The Galactic Technology Showcase was where the most advanced civilizations showed off their newest inventions and discoveries. Ambassador Chen stood in the waiting area, adjusting her simple black uniform. She was one of only 3 humans in a room full of aliens that looked like they stepped out of humanity's wildest dreams. Some floated in bubbles of water, others were made of living crystal, and a few existed as pure energy contained in mechanical suits. Chen felt very small and very young among these ancient beings. "The primitive humans are here," whispered a tall, blue-skinned Zephyrian to his companion. His voice carried across the room on purpose. "Can you believe they asked to present? They discovered faster than light travel only 30 years ago. My people have been traveling the stars for 50,000 years." Chen heard him but kept her face calm. She had heard worse things in the 3 days since arriving. Every species here seemed to enjoy reminding humans how new they were to space travel. How young, how primitive. The main assembly hall could hold 10,000 beings. Special fields adjusted gravity, atmosphere, and temperature for each section, allowing creatures from frozen methane worlds to sit next to those from burning hot planets. At the center, a raised platform waited for presenters. Above it all, the Council of Elders sat in floating thrones representing the oldest and most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. High Chancellor Korthax of the Dominion Alliance spoke first. His voice boomed through translators into every language. "Welcome to the 512th Galactic Technology Showcase. Today we celebrate the achievements that push our civilizations forward. We will see wonders that our ancestors could only dream about." One by one, different species took the stage. The Aquari showed a device that could terraform dead planets in just 10 years. The Mechanoids demonstrated robots so small they could repair DNA. The Void Singers, ancient beings of living sound, performed a symphony that literally created small pocket universes that lasted for seconds before collapsing. Each presentation was met with polite appreciation. These were impressive achievements, but nothing completely unexpected. The Zephyrians were especially proud when they showed their new phase shifters, massive city-sized machines that could move entire populations into the 5th dimension. To avoid danger, the 5th dimension, their lead, scientists said proudly, represents the absolute limit of where physical matter can exist safely. "We have pushed the boundaries as far as they can go." Many beings nodded in agreement. It was common knowledge that while the universe had many dimensions, only the first 5 could be accessed by living creatures. The 6th dimension had been barely touched by the Void Singers and only for communication. The 7th dimension and beyond were considered purely theoretical, impossible to reach. Finally, after 2 days of presentations, it was humanity's turn. "And now," Korthax announced, his 4 eyes showing amusement, "we have a presentation from our newest members. The humans of Earth. They have been spacefaring for 30 years. He paused, letting some laughter ripple through the crowd. "Ambassador Chen, please tell us what incredible discovery your species brings to share." Chen walked to the center of the platform. She was aware of thousands of eyes, sensors, and other organs watching her. Some beings were already turning away, expecting nothing important. "Thank you, High Chancellor," Chen said, her voice steady and clear. "Humanity is honored to be here. We know we are young compared to the great civilizations present. We have much to learn. At least they know their place," someone muttered in the Zephyrian section. Chen continued, "However, we believe we have discovered something that might interest you. We have successfully accessed and utilized the 7th dimension." The hall went completely silent for exactly 3 seconds. Then the laughter started. It began with the Zephyrians, a sound like wind chimes in a hurricane. The crystalline resonance joined in, their bodies literally shaking with amusement. Soon most of the hall was filled with the sounds of different species expressing their disbelief and amusement. "Impossible," shouted a Void Singer, their harmonious voice cutting through the noise. "We have studied dimensional physics for 20,000 years. The 7th dimension cannot hold physical matter. It would require infinite energy to even touch it." "The humans are confused," said a mechanoid, their artificial voice somehow managing to sound condescending. "Perhaps they have discovered some aspect of the 5th dimension and mistaken it for something greater." Korthax raised his hand for silence. "Ambassador Chen," he said, clearly trying not to laugh himself. Surely you mean something else. The seventh dimension exists only in mathematics. No species, no matter how advanced, has ever accessed it. The energy requirements alone would destroy a star. I understand your skepticism, Chen replied calmly. We thought the same thing. Our scientists spent years believing it was impossible. But we discovered something all of you missed. And what would that be? Asked a Zephyrian elder, their voice dripping with sarcasm. What did humanity in 30 years of space travel discover that civilizations millions of years old could not? We discovered that consciousness itself partially exists in the seventh dimension, Chen said simply. And we found a way to use it. More laughter filled the hall. Some beings were actually holding their stomachs or whatever organ they used for digestion. The idea that humans, barely out of their home system, had discovered something about consciousness that the galaxy's greatest minds had missed was beyond ridiculous to them. This is embarrassing, one of the Dominion generals said loudly. Should we end this presentation now and save the humans further shame? No, Korthax said, wiping tears from his 4 eyes. Let them continue. If nothing else, this will be remembered as the most entertaining showcase in centuries. Tell me, Ambassador, do you have any proof of this remarkable claim? Chen pulled out a small communication device. We have a demonstration prepared. Our vessel is waiting outside the station. A vessel? The Void Singer's harmonics vibrated with amusement. You brought a ship that can access the seventh dimension? How large is this miraculous craft? The size of a moon? A planet? It's about the size of a standard shuttle, Chen replied. The laughter grew even louder. Some beings were literally rolling on the floor, or floating in circles, or whatever their species did when extremely amused. A shuttle-sized vessel that can access the seventh dimension, Korthax repeated, making sure everyone heard. This is wonderful. Yes, please, Ambassador Chen, show us this miracle. We could all use more entertainment. Chen touched her communication device and spoke quietly. Captain Rivera, this is Ambassador Chen. Authorization code 77 Alpha. Begin approach to the station. Acknowledged, Ambassador, came a calm voice in reply. ETA 3 minutes. The assembly hall had massive windows that showed the space outside the station. Hundreds of ships from different civilizations floated there. Massive battleships, elegant explorers, practical cargo vessels. Everyone turned to look, waiting to see humanity's supposedly impossible vessel. While we wait, said a Zephyrian scientist, perhaps the ambassador can explain how humans, who still use chemical rockets on their home planet, somehow solved a problem that has stumped the greatest minds in the galaxy? We looked in a different direction, Chen said simply. Every species here tried to break into higher dimensions using force, more energy, exotic matter, complicated mathematics. But humans have always been curious about consciousness, about what makes us aware. When we finally understood that consciousness isn't produced by the brain but channeled through it from the seventh dimension, everything changed. Ridiculous pseudoscience, scoffed the mechanoid. Consciousness is simply complex information processing. We proved this eons ago. Chen didn't argue. She simply stood there, calm and patient, as the timer counted down. I see it, shouted someone near the window. A small sphere, no bigger than a shuttle as Chen had promised, appeared from hyperspace. It was simple, almost boring to look at. A perfect silver sphere with no visible engines, weapons, or even windows. Compared to the magnificent vessels around it, it looked like a child's toy. The laughter reached its peak. That's it? Korthax could barely speak through his amusement. That little ball is going to demonstrate seventh-dimensional access? What does it do, Ambassador? Please tell us. Chen looked at the chronometer on her wrist. In about 30 seconds, High Chancellor, the laughter is going to stop. She touched her device again and spoke clearly. Captain Rivera, initiate Protocol 7. Show them what we found in the dark. The small silver sphere began to shimmer. 3 days had passed since the showcase began. The assembly hall had seen wonders that would have seemed like magic to younger civilizations. Cities that could swim through space like fish through water. Machines that could print living creatures from raw atoms. Weapons that could delete matter from existence. But now, everyone watched the small silver sphere that hung in space outside the station. The laughter had died down to occasional chuckles and whispered jokes. Most beings expected the humans to fail spectacularly and become the comedy story told at gatherings for centuries to come. Dr. Yuki Tanaka stepped onto the presentation platform beside Ambassador Chen. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen more than most humans could imagine. She had spent 40 years of her life working on what everyone in this room thought was impossible. "Before we begin," Dr. Tanaka said, her voice quiet but somehow carrying to every corner of the vast hall, "I want to explain why humanity succeeded where others did not. It was not because we are smarter. It was not because we are more advanced. It was because we were too ignorant to know it was impossible." A few beings laughed, thinking she was joking. "Every civilization here," she continued, "learned the rules of the universe in order. You discovered fire, then chemistry, then atoms, then quantum mechanics, then dimensions. Each discovery built on the last. You learned what was possible and what was not. Your knowledge became your cage. Humans are different. We are impatient. We are curious about everything at once. While we were still figuring out basic spaceflight, we were also mapping the human brain. While we struggled to leave our solar system, we were studying consciousness itself. We didn't know that consciousness couldn't be fully explained by physics, so we kept trying until we found where it came from. The Void Singers, beings of pure harmonic energy, vibrated with interest. Their leader spoke, its voice like an orchestra. "You claim consciousness comes from the seventh dimension? This is not science. This is mysticism." "I thought the same," Dr. Tanaka admitted, "until we proved it. Every conscious being in this room is connected to the seventh dimension. It's where your thoughts exist before they become electrical signals in your brain or whatever you use to think. We didn't discover this through meditation or philosophy. We found it through quantum mechanics and very careful experiments." She gestured to the sphere outside. "The ship you see is called the UES Paradigm. Inside is Captain Rivera and a crew of 6. The sphere is not the ship itself. It's merely what you can see in the first 4 dimensions. The real vessel exists primarily in the 7th dimension." "Impossible," said a mechanoid flatly. "The energy requirements would be infinite if we tried to force our way in," Dr. Tanaka agreed. "But we don't force anything. Consciousness already exists partially in the 7th dimension. We simply taught the ship to think." The hall erupted in confused murmurs. Several species translation devices struggled with the concept. "You gave a machine consciousness?" asked the Zephyrian elder, no longer sounding amused. "No," Dr. Tanaka said. "We gave it the ability to borrow consciousness from its crew. The 7 humans inside are not just pilots. They are part of the engine itself. Their awareness, their ability to observe and choose, that's what opens the door to the 7th dimension." Outside the window, the paradigm continued to shimmer, but now beings with better sensors started noticing something strange. The space around the sphere was wrong. Not damaged or distorted, but somehow more real than the space around it. "Your sensors are probably giving you impossible readings right now," Dr. Tanaka said. "That's normal. The paradigm exists in multiple states simultaneously. It's here, but it's also elsewhere. It's now, but also then. In the 7th dimension, possibility and actuality are the same thing." High Chancellor Korthax had stopped laughing entirely. His 4 eyes were focused on the data streaming from the station's sensors. "These readings, they don't make sense. The mass of your vessel is fluctuating. Sometimes it registers as a shuttle, sometimes as heavy as a star, sometimes as nothing at all. The mass is constant," Dr. Tanaka explained patiently. "What changes is which version of the ship you're detecting. In the 7th dimension, every possible state exists at once. The paradigm can choose which possibility to manifest in our reality." To demonstrate, the sphere outside suddenly became transparent. Everyone could see inside. A simple interior with 7 humans sitting in chairs arranged in a circle, their eyes closed, holding hands. Then the sphere became solid gold. Then it was made of water, somehow holding its shape. Then it returned to silver. "Illusions," scoffed a Dominion general. "Holographic tricks. Feel free to scan it," Chen said. "Each change is real. The ship is actually made of those materials. It's selecting different quantum possibilities and making them real." The scans confirmed it. When the ship appeared to be gold, it was actually gold all the way through. When it was water, it was truly water. Yet the crew inside remained safe and unchanged. The Void Singers were harmonizing rapidly among themselves, their sound-based communication too fast for translators to follow. Finally, their leader spoke again. "If this is real, if consciousness truly can access the 7th dimension, then everything we thought we knew about reality is incomplete. Now you're beginning to understand, Dr. Tanaka said, with a small smile. Captain Rivera's voice came through the communication system. Broadcast for all to hear. Dr. Tanaka, we're ready for the next demonstration. Should we proceed? Yes, Captain. Show them what movement looks like when space and time are just suggestions. The paradigm vanished. There was no flash of light, no portal, no bending of space that the most advanced sensors could detect. One moment it was there, the next it was gone, then it appeared again. In 17 different places at once. 17 identical spheres now floated around the station. Not holograms, not projections, but 17 fully real vessels, each with the same crew inside. How? Korthax's voice failed him. The paradigm doesn't move through space, Dr. Tanaka explained. It simply chooses to exist elsewhere. And since all possibilities are equally real in the 7th dimension, it can choose to exist in multiple places at once. Each version is the real ship. They're all the original. The 17 spheres suddenly became one again, appearing right where it started. A Zephyrian scientist stood up, his blue skin pale with shock. The energy requirements for what you just did? Our computers can't even calculate it. It should have consumed the power of 1,000 suns. That's because you're thinking in terms of the dimensions you know, Dr. Tanaka said. In the 7th dimension, energy and matter are just different faces of information. And information wants to flow. We don't force anything. We simply remove the barriers that keep possibilities from becoming real. The resonance beings of living crystal began vibrating in harmony. Their leader's voice rang out like bells. If you can truly access the 7th dimension, then you could... Yes, Chen said simply. We could do almost anything. But having power and using it wisely are very different things. Outside, the paradigm began to pulse with a soft light. The space around it started to ripple, but not with the violence of a weapon or the chaos of a space-time tear. It was gentle, like reality was breathing. The crew is now going to demonstrate defensive capabilities, Dr. Tanaka announced. High Chancellor, would you authorize one of your ships to fire a non-lethal warning shot at the paradigm? We promise no harm will come to anyone. Korthax hesitated, then nodded to one of his generals. A Dominion destroyer, a ship the size of a city block and bristling with weapons, turned toward the small sphere. Fire a low-power plasma burst, the general ordered. Minimum yield. A bright blue bolt of energy shot from the destroyer toward the paradigm. Everyone watched, expecting to see shields flare or the sphere dodge. Neither happened. The plasma bolt simply ceased to exist halfway to its target. It didn't explode, wasn't absorbed, wasn't deflected. It just wasn't anymore. What did you do? The general demanded. Captain Rivera's calm voice answered. We selected a timeline where you didn't fire. The bolt never existed in the first place. Your ship's logs will show the weapon was armed but never triggered. The general checked his ship's records. His expression went from confusion to fear. The logs, they show we prepared to fire but then decided against it. But I remember giving the order. My crew remembers firing. Both are true, Dr. Tanaka said. In the 7th dimension, all possibilities exist. We simply chose which one became real. Your memory is from one timeline. Your ship's logs are from another. We kept the one where no shot was fired. The hall had gone completely silent now. No one was laughing. Many beings were recalculating everything they thought they knew about military power, about defense, about the nature of conflict itself. This is impossible, whispered a mechanoid. You're saying you can simply choose not to be attacked? That you can edit reality itself? Within limits, Dr. Tanaka said. The more we change, the more consciousness energy it requires. 7 minds can only do so much. But yes, conventional warfare becomes rather pointless when one side can simply decide the attack never happened. The Void Singers had stopped their harmonizing. Their leader spoke in low, frightened tones. Captain Maria Rivera sat in the center of the paradigm's consciousness circle, her hands linked with her 6 crew members. Their eyes were closed, but they could see everything, not just the space around them, but the threads of possibility that stretched in every direction through dimensions that had no names. They're scared, whispered Lieutenant Wong, the youngest of the crew at just 25. His mind voice echoed in the shared space of their connected consciousness. They should be, replied Commander Petrov, the veteran of the group. We're showing them that everything they believed about power is wrong. Focus, Rivera said gently. Remember our purpose. We're teachers, not conquerors. Dr. Tanaka is about to ask for the full demonstration. Is everyone ready? 6 mental confirmations flowed back to her. Rivera could feel each crew member's thoughts and emotions. Wong's nervous excitement, Petrov's steady determination, Dr. Sarah Kim's scientific curiosity, Engineers Rodriguez and Patel's synchronized precision, and Navigator Thompson's deep calm. Through the ship's 7th dimensional awareness, they could perceive every being in the station. Each alien mind was like a flame of consciousness, burning in patterns unique to their species. The Zephyrians thought in cascading blue frequencies. The Void Singers existed as harmonious chords of awareness. The mechanoids computed in precise digital pulses that still somehow produced true consciousness. Captain Rivera, Dr. Tanaka's voice came through both the communication system and the dimension of thought itself. Please proceed with the full demonstration. Show them what the paradigm can do. Acknowledged, Rivera replied. Beginning with navigation demonstration. Inside the assembly hall, thousands of beings watched as the silver sphere outside began to pulse with a rhythm like a heartbeat. The space around it shimmered, and then something unprecedented happened. The paradigm appeared to stretch, not through space, but through possibility itself. Ghostly images of the vessel appeared in a line stretching from the station to the edge of the solar system. Thousands of transparent spheres showing where the ship could be. Navigator Thompson, Rivera said. Take us for a walk. Thompson smiled without opening his eyes. In the 7th dimension, distance was just an opinion. He reached out with his consciousness and touched each possible position in sequence. To the observers, it looked like the paradigm was teleporting from point to point, but Thompson knew better. They weren't moving at all. They were simply choosing where to be. The ship appeared at the system's edge, then near the star, then beside each planet in turn, then back at the station, all in less than 3 seconds. Impossible, breathed a Dominion scientist. Even our fastest hyperspace jump takes minutes to cross a system. You just did it in heartbeats, Dr. Tanaka nodded. The paradigm doesn't travel through space. It exists in the 7th dimension where all locations are equally accessible. The crew simply decides where they want to be and they are there. But the energy, a Zephyrian began. There is no energy expenditure, Dr. Tanaka interrupted. You don't need energy to make a choice. You just need consciousness. High Chancellor Korthax leaned forward on his floating throne. If you can appear anywhere instantly, you could place bombs in the heart of any ship, any planet, any star. We could, Ambassador Chen agreed. But that brings us to our next demonstration. Captain Rivera, please show them the defensive capabilities. High Chancellor, would you authorize a full weapons test? Multiple ships, full power. We guarantee no one will be harmed. Korthax hesitated. The implications of what he was about to authorize were staggering. If the humans were lying, if their ship was destroyed, it could spark a war. But if they were telling the truth, all Dominion vessels, he commanded, target the human sphere. Prepare for full weapon deployment on my mark. 12 Dominion warships turned their weapons toward the tiny paradigm. Plasma cannons, antimatter torpedoes, gravity bombs, dimensional shears. Enough firepower to crack a moon in half. Fire, Korthax ordered. Space lit up like a new sun being born. Beams of destruction, projectiles of annihilation, waves of space-time distortion all converged on the small silver sphere. The light was so bright that the station's windows automatically darkened to protect the observer's vision. When the glare faded, the paradigm floated exactly where it had been, completely unharmed. But something else had changed. All around the sphere, the weapons fire hung frozen in space. Beams of energy stopped mid-flight. Torpedoes suspended motionless, gravity waves crystallized into visible distortions. We call this a probability bubble, Captain Rivera explained, her voice calm despite the awesome display. We've selected a timeline where time moves differently for the weapons than it does for us. From their perspective, they're still traveling toward us. From our perspective, they'll never arrive. Release them, someone shouted. What happens when you release them? Let's see, Rivera said. The frozen weapons suddenly resumed their motion, but now they were traveling backward, returning to the ships that fired them. Not as attacks, but as gentle streams of particles that were reabsorbed into the weapon systems. We reversed their temporal vector. Dr. Kim's voice came through the communication. The weapons fire was unfired. The energy returned to its source. It's as if the attack never happened, except you all remember it. The assembly hall was silent except for the sound of various species' breathing apparatus. The demonstration was beyond anything they had imagined. This wasn't just advanced technology. It was a fundamental mastery over reality itself. Now for something more constructive, Dr. Tanaka announced. There's a dead moon in this system, designated K442b7. It's scheduled to be mined for raw materials. Captain Rivera, please demonstrate matter manipulation. The paradigm vanished from beside the station and appeared near a gray, cratered moon about half the size of Earth's Luna. The barren rock had been dead for millions of years, its surface scarred by countless meteor impacts. Watch carefully, Rivera said. Engineers Rodriguez and Patel, you're up. The two engineers' minds merged more deeply with the ship's consciousness. In the seventh dimension, they could see every possible state the moon could exist in, past, present, future, and states that never were but could have been. They reached out and began selecting. The moon's surface began to change. Not violently, not with the flash and drama of terraforming technology, but smoothly as if time itself was being edited. The craters filled in. The gray rock became brown soil. Patches of green appeared, not spreading but simply existing where they hadn't before. In less than a minute, the dead moon had become a garden world. Oceans of pure water covered 30% of its surface. Forests of Earth-like trees swayed in an atmosphere that shouldn't exist. The transformation was complete and perfect. You terraformed it. A void singer harmonized in awe. In seconds, you did what takes our best technology decades. Not terraformed, Dr. Tanaka corrected. We selected a timeline where this moon developed differently, where it kept its atmosphere, where life evolved, where it became what you see now. All the possibilities exist in the seventh dimension. We just chose which one to make real. Change it back, Korthax commanded, his voice shaking. Show us this isn't permanent. The paradigm pulsed once and the garden moon became dead rock again. Then it transformed into something else, a sphere of pure diamond, then iron, then water held in a perfect sphere by its own gravity, then back to its original state. Matter is just organized information, Dr. Kim explained. In the seventh dimension, we can rewrite that information. We can make anything become anything else, as long as we have the consciousness to perceive and choose it. A mechanoid representative stood up, its metal body reflecting the light of the demonstration. This is too much power for any species to have. You could destroy the galactic economy. Why would anyone mine asteroids or manufacture goods if you can simply will them into existence? Because we can't do it on a large scale, Rivera admitted. 7 mines can affect something moon-sized for a short time. To make permanent changes or to affect something planet-sized would take hundreds of linked consciousnesses. And there's a cost. What cost? Asked a resonant, its crystalline form vibrating with concern. Every time we reach into the seventh dimension, we see more. Wang's young voice came through the speakers. We see the connections between all things. We see how every change we make ripples through reality. We see the responsibility that comes with this power. It changes you. Dr. Tanaka nodded. The crew of the paradigm can never go back to seeing the universe the simple way. They're aware of every possibility, every choice not made, every timeline that could have been. It's beautiful, but it's also overwhelming. That's why we rotate crews every month. Show them the combat capabilities, Ambassador Chen said quietly. They need to understand why warfare is now obsolete. 5 attack drones launched from a Zephyrian cruiser, not to attack, but as target practice. They were state-of-the-art combat units equipped with phase shields that could slip into the 5th dimension to avoid damage. The paradigm didn't fire any weapons. Instead, the drones simply began to age. In seconds, they went from brand new to ancient, their metal corroding, their circuits failing, their power sources depleting. Then they reversed, becoming newer than new. Panic spread through the assembly hall like a virus jumping between species. The Zephyrians were the first to try escaping. Their delegation activated their personal phase shifters, attempting to slip into the 5th dimension and disappear. Nothing happened. They remained solid, visible, trapped in normal space. We've locked local space-time, Captain Rivera's voice explained calmly through the communication system. No one leaves until we finish our conversation. Don't worry, you're not prisoners. You're students who haven't finished their lesson yet. High Chancellor Korthax slammed one of his forearms on his throne. You dare imprison the Galactic Council? We dare to make you listen, Ambassador Chen replied. For once, truly listen. Not as superior beings tolerating the words of primitives, but as equals facing a new reality. The Void Singers were harmonizing frantically among themselves, their sound-based bodies rippling with frequencies that normally could punch through dimensional barriers. But every attempt to communicate with their homeworld failed. Their harmonies just bounced back, contained within the station. Impossible, their leader vibrated. Our songs travel through the sixth dimension. Nothing can stop them. The seventh dimension contains the sixth, just as the sixth contains the fifth. Dr. Tanaka explained patiently. We're not blocking your songs. We're just listening to them first. Learning your language. Understanding your network. Mapping every connection you have to every other void singer in the galaxy. The implications of that statement sent new waves of fear through the assembly. If humans could intercept and understand sixth-dimensional communications, then the Void Singer's entire civilization, built on instantaneous harmony across space, was completely exposed. A mechanoid representative stood up, its chrome body reflecting the frightened faces around it. You're learning our communication methods? All of them. We've been learning for 5 years, Chen admitted. Every encrypted message, every secret channel, every hidden frequency. The seventh dimension sees all lower dimensions like you see a flat drawing on paper. Your secrets are not secret anymore. Then you know. A Dominion general began, then stopped himself. About the bioweapons you developed specifically to target human DNA? Chen asked. Yes, about the plan to infiltrate Earth with shapeshifters. We know that too. The secret alliance between 12 species to limit humanity to one solar system? The betting pool on how long before we destroy ourselves. We know it all. Dr. Tanaka pulled up holographic displays that filled the center of the hall. Secret documents, recorded conversations, military plans. The entire conspiracy against humanity laid bare for everyone to see. Species that had claimed friendship with humans were revealed as plotting their containment. Civilizations that preached peace were shown preparing for war. The resonance, Dr. Tanaka read from one document, suggested introducing a computer virus into Earth's networks that would slowly degrade our technology over decades, making us lose our spacefaring capability without knowing why. The crystalline beings chimed in alarm, their bodies fracturing light into rainbows of embarrassment. The Aquari, she continued, proposed redirecting comets toward Earth to create natural disasters that would keep us too busy to expand. The water-dwelling representatives swirled in their containment spheres, trying to hide themselves in clouds of ink. And the Dominion Alliance, Chen took over, had the most direct plan, a full invasion fleet hidden in dark space, ready to jump to Earth the moment we showed any sign of developing weapons that could threaten the established order. You were going to attack us, Dr. Tanaka said, her voice sad rather than angry. All of you in different ways. Because we were different. Because we were unpredictable. Because we reminded you that the universe still held surprises. You have to understand, Korthak said, his voice now defensive rather than commanding. Humans are chaos incarnate. You wage war on yourselves. You destroy your own planet's environment. You create artificial intelligences without safeguards. You were a danger to galactic stability. Were? Rivera's voice asked. What are we now? No one answered. What humans were now was beyond dangerous. They were untouchable, all-seeing, capable of rewriting reality itself. The paradigm vessels outside began to pulse in sequence, and new images appeared in the holographic displays. But these weren't secret documents. They were memories, pulled directly from the seventh dimension where all consciousness touched. The assembly watched a young Zephyrian child, millions of years ago, looking up at the stars and wondering if anyone else was out there. They saw the first Void Singer discovering harmony, the joy of connection across space. They witnessed the mechanoid's birth into consciousness, that moment when programming became true awareness. Every species here started like us, Wang's young voice said through the speakers. Curious, afraid, hoping you weren't alone in the universe. You've just forgotten what it was like to be young. But we learned, the Zephyrian elder protested. We grew beyond our primitive nature. Did you? Chen asked. Or did you just become better at hiding it? You still fight wars, just with lawyers and economics instead of bombs. You still hate what's different? You just express it through exclusion rather than violence. You still fear the unknown. That's why you were going to attack us. The images changed, showing humanity's history. Wars, yes, but also peace treaties. Destruction, but also rebuilding. Hatred, but also love that crossed every boundary humans had ever created. We know what we are, Dr. Tanaka said. We're chaotic. We're violent. We're unpredictable. But we're also creative, adaptive, and capable of growth. And when we discovered the seventh dimension, we had to face all of that directly. Inside the paradigm, the crew was reaching deep into the dimension of consciousness, preparing for something unprecedented. Rivera could feel the strain on her team. Maintaining this level of awareness for so long was exhausting. But they had one more truth to share. Every species here, Rivera said, has been asking the wrong question. You keep asking what we're going to do with this power. The real question is, what are you going to do now that we have it? What choice do we have? A small species representative asked. You could destroy anyone who opposes you. But we won't, Chen said. And deep down you're starting to realize that. Because if we were the monsters you feared, would we be talking? Would we be explaining? Would we be offering to share? Dr. Tanaka pulled up a new display, a simple document with just a few paragraphs of text. This is a treaty, she said. The Consciousness Accords. Any species that signs it gets access to our research on the seventh dimension. Not the full technology, that's too dangerous to share quickly, but the beginning steps. The meditation techniques, the quantum consciousness theories, the basic mathematics. In exchange for what? Korthax asked suspiciously. Peace, Chen said simply. Real peace, not just the absence of war. Any species that learns to access the seventh dimension will understand what we understand. That all consciousness is connected. That harming another is literally harming yourself. That diversity isn't a threat but a strength. And if we refuse, then you continue as you are, Dr. Tanaka said. But you do so knowing that humanity is watching. Any attack on a peaceful species will be prevented. Any genocide will be reversed. Any attempt to use weapons of mass destruction will find those weapons simply don't work anymore. You're setting yourselves up as the galaxy's police, the Dominion General accused. No, Rivera's voice corrected. We are the galaxy's witnesses. We won't rule, won't control, won't dictate. But we will prevent the worst atrocities. Think of us as the universe's safety net. The Void Singers had been harmonizing quietly among themselves. Now their leader spoke, its voice resonating with something almost like hope. You said you've been listening to our communications. Then you know we're not just a military alliance. We're artists. We create symphonies that span star systems. Have you heard our great works? We have, Dr. Kim's voice answered warmly. They're beautiful. In the seventh dimension, we can see how your music creates ripples in consciousness itself. You're closer to understanding the dimension than you know. Your harmonies already touch it. Then, we could learn. Our people could access this dimension. You're already halfway there, Dr. Tanaka confirmed. Your entire species thinks in harmony and connection. With training, Void Singers might be the first non-humans to fully access the seventh dimension. Hope began to replace fear in some parts of the assembly. If the Void Singers could learn, if this power wasn't uniquely human, then perhaps this wasn't about one species dominating, but about the galaxy evolving together. But others weren't convinced. This is a trap, a Zephyrian military commander said. You show us power we can't match, then offer to teach us, but slowly controlled by you. You're making us dependent on your mercy. We're already dependent on each other, Chen replied. The galaxy has always been interconnected. Trade routes, alliances, shared knowledge. The seventh dimension just makes that connection visible and undeniable. Prove it, Korthax demanded. If you really mean to share this knowledge, if this isn't about control, prove it. Dr. Tanaka looked at Captain Rivera's image on the screen. The captain nodded, understanding what was being asked. All paradigm vessels, Rivera commanded. 6 months had passed since the demonstration at Kepler 442b. Earth, once seen as an easy target for conquest or control, now hosted delegations from every major civilization in the galaxy. The small blue planet that the galaxy had laughed at was now the center of the greatest scientific and philosophical revolution in recorded history. Ambassador Chen stood on the observation deck of humanity's new orbital facility, watching ships from 100 different worlds dock at the station. Each vessel carried scientists, philosophers, and consciousness researchers eager to learn what humans had discovered. The facility itself was a marvel, not built but imagined into existence by the combined consciousness of 50 human minds working through the seventh dimension. The Void Singers have arrived, Dr. Tanaka said, joining Chen at the window. The elderly scientist looked tired but satisfied. The last months had been exhausting but rewarding beyond measure. Outside, a ship that looked like crystallized music itself glided into dock. The Void Singers had been the fastest learners, their natural harmonic thinking making them ideally suited for seventh-dimensional perception. 3 of their kind had already successfully accessed the dimension without human help. How many Paradigm-class vessels do we have now? Chen asked. 43 operational with 12 more in training, Dr. Tanaka replied. But the real news is that the first non-human vessel is almost ready. The Void Singers have built their own, using their harmonic consciousness instead of our neural linking. Chen smiled. This was what they had hoped for, not human dominance but galactic advancement. Each species that learned to access the seventh dimension did it differently, bringing their own unique perspective to the understanding of consciousness. Down on Earth's surface, in a facility that existed partially in 7 dimensions at once, Captain Rivera was training the newest group of Paradigm crews. The volunteers came from every nation on Earth, but also included 3 Void Singers, a young mechanoid and, surprisingly, a Zephyrian who had overcome his species' pride to learn from the primitives. Remember, Rivera told her students, the 7th dimension isn't about power. It's about responsibility. Every change you make ripples through all possible timelines. Every choice affects every conscious being. Use this gift wisely. The mixed group sat in a circle, their various forms of consciousness beginning to link. The Void Singer harmonized, the mechanoid computed, the humans felt, and somehow in the space between their different ways of thinking, they found the doorway to the 7th dimension. High Chancellor Korthax had relocated his office to Earth temporarily. The massive being sat across from President Martinez of Earth's United Nations, discussing the new reality of galactic politics. The Dominion Alliance is dissolving, Korthax reported, not through force or conflict, but through understanding. When you can feel your enemy's consciousness, when you understand that their fear is your fear, their joy is your joy, war becomes impossible. Not impossible, Martinez corrected gently. Just unthinkable. There's a difference. We must remain vigilant that we never forget why peace is precious. You humans, Korthax said, his 4 eyes showing what might have been amusement. 6 months ago we thought you were dangerous because of your violence. Now we know you're dangerous because of your hope. Hope is the most powerful force in any dimension, Martinez replied. In space around Earth, the Paradigm vessels maintained their watch. But they weren't alone anymore. 3 Void Singer Harmony ships floated alongside them, their crews learning to perceive threats before they manifested. A mechanoid probability calculator worked with human vessels to map potential futures. Even a reformed Dominion cruiser had joined the patrol, its crew learning that protection was more fulfilling than domination. The real change, though, was happening on a deeper level. Dr. Yuki Tanaka stood in the new Consciousness Research Collective, a building that existed simultaneously on Earth, the Void Singer homeworld, and 17 other planets through 7th-dimensional engineering. Scientists of every species worked side by side, sharing discoveries that would have been impossible alone. Look at this, a resonant scientist chimed excitedly, its crystalline body displaying data and light patterns. When we combine human intuition, Void Singer harmony, and mechanoid calculation, we can access not just the 7th dimension, but glimpses of the 8th. The 8th dimension? Dr. Tanaka asked, intrigued. What did you see? Purpose, the resonant replied. If the 7th dimension is where consciousness exists, the 8th is where meaning lives. We're not ready for it yet, but someday. Lieutenant Wong, now promoted to commander, was leading humanity's first joint exploration mission. His crew included members of 12 species, and their ship, the UES Unity, was a hybrid of technologies. It could phase like a Zephyrian vessel, harmonize like a Void Singer, compute like a mechanoid, and access the 7th dimension like a paradigm. Where should we go? Wong asked his diverse crew. Everywhere, they replied in unison, though in different languages and forms of communication. They chose to visit the galaxy's oldest mystery, a region of space where stars formed patterns that looked deliberate, as if someone had arranged them to spell out a message in a language no one understood. With 7th-dimensional perception, they might finally decode it. Back on the station above Earth, a small ceremony was taking place. The first non-human graduate of the Paradigm program was receiving their certification. The young Aquari, who had been the first to accept the seventh-dimensional perception at the demonstration, now commanded her own vessel. "I name this ship First Step," she announced through her translator, "because every journey begins with the courage to see things differently." But not everything was perfect in this new paradigm. There were holdouts, species that refused to accept the new reality. The Krieglar, a warrior culture that defined itself through conflict, struggled to find purpose in a galaxy where war was obsolete. The Entropy Coalition, who believed the universe should be allowed to decay naturally, saw the seventh dimension as an abomination against cosmic law. These groups had formed an opposition, not violent, that was impossible now, but philosophical. They argued that humanity had destroyed free will by making everyone aware of their connections. They claimed the seventh dimension was a prison of consciousness, not a liberation. Ambassador Chen met with their representatives regularly, not to convince them but to understand them. "You've taken away our right to be individuals," the Krieglar representative growled. "No," Chen replied patiently. "We've shown you that individuality and connection aren't opposites. You can be yourself while understanding your place in the greater whole." "Easy for you to say," the Entropy Coalition leader hissed. "Your species discovered this. You're adapted to it. For the rest of us, it's forced evolution." "All evolution is forced by circumstances," Dr. Tanaka said, joining the discussion. "The only choice is whether we guide it or let it happen to us." The debates continued, but without violence, without threats. Even those who opposed the new paradigm had to admit that the galaxy was more peaceful than it had ever been. Crime had virtually disappeared on worlds where seventh-dimensional perception was common. It was hard to harm another when you could feel their pain, as your own trade had transformed from competition to cooperation. Why fight over resources when matter could be restructured at will? Why hide technological advances when shared consciousness made all knowledge communal? The Galactic Council had reformed entirely. Instead of a hierarchy based on military might or technological advancement, it was now a circle where every species had equal voice. Decisions were made not through voting but through consensus reached in the seventh dimension, where all perspectives could be felt simultaneously. Captain Rivera, now Admiral Rivera, commanded not just the Paradigm Fleet but the new Galactic Peace Force, a collection of vessels from every species, all trained in seventh-dimensional perception. Their job wasn't to fight but to prevent the need for fighting, to resolve conflicts before they began by helping beings understand each other at the deepest level. "We have a situation," her aide reported. "A pre-FTL civilization in the Vega system just split the atom. The old protocol would be to watch and wait." "What's the new protocol?" "We help," Rivera decided. "Send the teaching ship Wisdom. Let them know they're not alone before they have a chance to be afraid." This was the new way. Instead of letting young civilizations struggle in isolation, possibly destroying themselves, the galaxy now reached out early with guidance and support. Not control, but mentorship. Earth itself had transformed. The planet that humans had been slowly destroying was now healed. Using seventh-dimensional manipulation, humanity had reversed centuries of damage in months. Extinct species were brought back not through cloning, but by selecting timelines where they never died out. The climate was stabilized, the oceans cleaned, the air purified, but the biggest change was in humanity itself. Children were being born who could sense the seventh dimension naturally, without technological assistance. They grew up knowing they were connected to all life, unable to conceive of the hatred and division that had defined so much of human history. "We're evolving," Dr. Kim reported to the assembled scientists, "not just culturally but biologically.